let's go with some quick hits.
Let's go.
Now, one of my favorite stories of how clubs are dealing with the situation involves Parma. Every night, a different Parma player reads a child's bedtime story, and they chuck it out on social media. I think it's brilliant. I don't know if they're copying this from somebody else or if they thought of it themselves. Either way, I think it's pretty darn cool.
I think it's really cool. I'm going to tell you what I really enjoyed this weekend was the FIFA 20 La Liga tournament, where each club, apart from Barcelona and Mallorca, because they're under contract with another video games company who makes another football game, so they could not participate. But all the other 18 clubs all had one of their players playing in that FIFA tournament online. It was with a famous gamer in Spain on his Twitch channel, and it was really cool, I thought, to watch a bit. It was professional commentators as well, and all of that. It was really cool. In the end, Marco Asensio, who we said had not played this season because he was injured, but who was playing for Real Madrid on Real's behalf, won the tournament. He beat Leganés in the final, and Aitor Rubial, who plays for Leganés and who was the Leganés player. But you also had Januzaj, for example. You had Borja Iglesias, who played for Betis, who actually made a really cool video. He was arriving almost like if he was going to a stadium to play a game for Betis, but he had his little wash bag and he was walking and the camera was following him inside his house. He was sitting down and doing this, and then taking his shirt off, and he had his Betis shirt on, and then in his wash bag he had his little PlayStation remote PlayStation control to play the game. So that was really cool, and I enjoy this.
Now, I'm going to assume that Marco Asensio was so good because he's been injured for so long. He's had a chance to become really, really good.
And he's 12 as well, so he's 12, so it's easier, when you're 12 to play PlayStation.
Did he pick himself in the starting 11 for Real
That's
Madrid?
a good question. I can't remember, actually.
All right.
I think he did.
Ahead of Eden Hazard and Gareth Bale. No, because it did occur to me that could create some tension, right?
Of course it could, but it's only a game. Let's not forget, it's only a game.
I wonder if Juventus did it and Douglas Costa left out Cristiano. I don't think that would go over very well.
That wouldn't go down well. Right, today is Gianni Infantino's birthday, Gab. He turns 50. And are you going to wish him a happy birthday? I'm sure you will, but what would you wish him for?
Well, look, I just wish that he and the other stakeholders that they're currently arguing with, which is very obviously UEFA and CONMEBOL, that they get together and they realize that we have an issue here and they need to work on it. Now, they've already been doing that, and I think we talked about it. That's been pretty encouraging. So FIFA have said, for example, they're going to go and work with the needs of the clubs in terms of registration windows, contracts. They've obviously already moved the Club World Cup. They're talking about how they've donated 10 million euros, I think, to the World Health Organization. They're going to create a fund for players. That's all encouraging. I want to see it continue. And I was struck by something Gianni came up with, which I know he's beating the drum for this, and I know those of us in Europe, especially if we live in England, we got the Premier League, the most glamorous, wealthiest league in the world. But he talked about, in defending his Club World Cup and his vision for football, he said, one of our goals is to is to develop football everywhere, so that when you have a World Cup, you don't just have 10 countries, 8 from Europe and 2 from South America, who can realistically win it. And if we have a Club World Cup, we have maybe 50 different teams that can hope to win it, rather than just 8 or 10 teams from Europe, which, Flamengo notwithstanding, is probably the reality of it. And I don't know, that is FIFA's job, right? I mean, I can understand UEFA's role in defending their territory, but that kind of is what FIFA should be doing, right?
It is, and like we said last week, I think this is a huge opportunity for UEFA and for FIFA to put things right, or at least to put things better, because it's such a tough time for everyone. You start to realizing values and what's really important in life and what isn't. And I think this could, like you said very well, I thought last week, you could use this to put FIFA to have a better football for everyone, not grassroots football, professional game. from FIFA, from UEFA, from every confederation in the world. Use this. Use your resources. Your players. Use your time to make things better. And maybe we were going in the wrong direction at some point, all of us, not just in football, but maybe this time, and what we've been learning from this, when it's finally finished and we're over the line and we're on the other side, could be useful to make things better and have a better world.
He did talk about this, and both from the match calendar to maybe having fewer competitions. I don't know that we need to have so many professional clubs in some leagues. In other leagues, there's the conditions to have more. Better owners. I think there's a lot that can be done, and I hope, like you said, if something good comes out of this mess, maybe that can be it. Now, a number of players have taken this opportunity to simply fly home and get the hell out of Dodge. Now, there's travel restrictions that are different in different countries. They're pretty severe. I want to take you to Gonzalo Higuain, because he's been slaughtered by some people in Italy. He flew back to South America. Also, his mom is unwell. To do this, he had to take a private plane, I think, from Turin to France, and then another private plane from France to somewhere else, and then from there, presumably, another private plane, or maybe not, or maybe a business class ticket back to Argentina. Now, he did this after taking the test. He tested negative, so he's healthy. Do you have a problem with him going back home?
I don't have a problem with him. We had a similar debate in France because a few of the PSG players, Thiago Silva, for example, Neymar, have gone back to Brazil. Edinson Cavani has gone back to Uruguay as well. You can understand. You could also make a case of, you were told not to go anywhere. Why didn't you stay in self-isolation like everybody else in France? PSG, by the way, for the record, and we wrote a story last week about it, gave the authorization to whoever wanted. Michel Baker, for example, went back to Holland, not as far as South America. But so players were free to go home if they wanted. The club had said, it's fine with us if you want to, but be very, very cautious, and take all the precautions. So, Thiago Silva's wife explained it and justified it by saying we went to the supermarket in Paris and there was nothing left to buy. So we went home to Brazil. I'm like, what? This is ridiculous. So I can understand both sides of the argument. I can understand
how offensive that would be to a Parisian. Wait, you actually think you've got better food options in Brazil than you do in Paris?
It's not just the food option, but don't tell me that
all you eat is rice and beans, and that's fine, yeah? Maybe that's what Mrs. Thiago Silva likes,
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. They had that option. They took it, But I don't understand why they're getting slaughtered. It's an option on the table. I'm sure if a lot of people had the option to go home in a safe environment, in a safe way, a lot of them would have taken it. Let's not forget, like we said with Mark earlier, there's a lot of players, there's a lot of people who are on their own, far from their family. And, Edinson Cavani, for example, is one of them. Who would want to be closer to their families, and in a way, even if then you go home and you self-isolate, it's still a better maybe to be closer or be at home than not. And I don't know. I understand both sides of the argument.
No argument there. I don't think you need to stick around and be part of some sort of giant solidarity. If you have the opportunity to go home and you can do it safely, take it.
Well, and finally, former Real Madrid president Lorenzo Sanz passed away over the weekend due to the virus as well. Gabi took the European Cup back to Madrid after more than 30 years. Talk to us a bit about his legacy.
I think his legacy was pretty big. Now, he's not somebody who was loved by everybody during his presidency. But for a club like Real Madrid, who really felt like they were pretty close to cursed, he was the president who spent money. He was the president who, I believe, brought Fabio Capello to try to win it. Only lasted 1 year, obviously, but then 97-98, they won the European Cup. Mijatovic, of course, if memory serves, in the final. And eventually he made way for Florentino Perez, and sort of the Galactico era, the first Galactico era started. But I think he kind of laid the groundwork there. Now, a lot of Real Madrid nerds will come out and say, yes, but the club's finances were terrible and this and that. And, there were some aspects that maybe were a bit murkier. But I think that he really was sort of the guy who laid the groundwork for Real Madrid is more of a global commercial brand, which then Florentino took in several levels up. So certainly a big contributor to the development of the club.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.